The historic island of Zou. There's nothing weird or mysterious about it at all. You can feel safe bringing your family to this island of friendly furries who have no conception of personal space. Explore the centuries-old city of Kurao, or take a stroll through the Right Rump Forest. Just don't go in the whale forest. Enjoy the ocean? Well, Zou brings the ocean directly to you with twice daily rain eruptions that will have you feeling relaxed and rejuvenated. And there's parties!
The Phantom Island of Zou is located on the back of a massive millennia-old elephant. We are not responsible for any pain, injury, or death you may incur while climbing up or down this horrifying ancient beast. If you are allergic to elephants, please consult your doctor to see if Zou is the right island for you.
So, what are you waiting for? Continue your tour of the New World today by visiting Zou, but stay out of the whale forest! Welcome one and all to the next stop in my One Piece First Impressions series. Today, I'm going to be discussing the entirety of the Zou arc. An arc that I really appreciated because of how unique and non-formulaic it was. Zou is really all about just setting up more mysteries for the future, while providing just the teeniest bit of revelations to get you salivating like a 10-foot-tall dog by the end. Oh, and of course, it's finally here. After all this time, we're finally getting Sanji's backstory. I'm very excited, and I finally feel vindicated, but we'll get to all that as the story proceeds. For those of you just joining us on this journey, this is the series where I give my first impressions on the One Piece anime as a first-time viewer. If you're curious about my thoughts on previous arcs, there is a link in the description. Now, with all that out of the way, let's sail on. Before I get into the Straw Hat's story in this arc, there are a couple of little details that I want to talk about that I feel might be important later. Oda is on a seed planting spree after Dofi got his ass kicked, running around like Johnny Appleseed, preparing us for dope shit. Dated Johnny Appleseed reference? Check. First up, we see a new warlord who claims to be Whitebeard's biological son, and the resemblance is uncanny. Edward Weevil is an extremely powerful freak show who has been taking down former Whitebeard officers. I've gotta say that this dumpy dude is the perfect subversion for what one would expect from Whitebeard's son, and the fact that I legit don't know if he is or isn't is very fun. He's got a scheming mama who at first I thought was just in this for the money, but then it does seem like she has a history with Garp. I'm leaning toward this being a fake son scheme, but this is just another example of the great storytelling of One Piece. Literally anything can happen. Now let's check in with another new warlord, the once and future pirate king, Captain Buggy. He's been running a mercenary operation, and business is booming. Now that Dofi's arms trade has been interrupted, the snails are ringing off the shell. However, his best men, 5 giants, do quit to join a certain pirate operation. Lastly, the revolution. We see Koala talking to Dragon about what went down on Dressrosa, and after a moment, she asks if he is gonna ask about Luffy. Dragon sighs and said he's had more than enough of that. Sabo told him everything, but Dragon seems kinda disappointed in Luffy, which I was not expecting. Despite becoming more present in the series, we still know next to nothing about Dragon, and if he is disappointed in Luffy's godlike heroic actions in Dressrosa, I am truly curious what Dragon values in others. But I am excited to see that he isn't just like Garp, who can't help but be proud of Luffy. It creates a interesting dynamic. Of course, this is all analysis of what could be a big ol' fat nothing burger. Oh, also, holy shit! Burgess found the Revolution's HQ and is leading the Blackbeard pirates there. We'll get back to that later. Now the moment you've all been waiting for. The Straw Hats arrive at Zou. Allow me to read to you the first comment I wrote in my notes after seeing this island. Okay, what the actual hell? Zou is an island on the back of a massive 1,000-year-old elephant? Yeah, okay, hate to admit it, but somehow I didn't see that coming. What a goddamn insane new location. I can't wait to see this shit. Like I said, anything can happen in this series, and it really feels like we're going balls to the wall insane from here on out. I love this concept of a civilization on the back of an ancient beast, walking along the Grand Line, going God knows where. It's mystic and creepy with this air of wonder and just a tinge of dread. It's so unique to this series, and yet it feels like it fits right in. I absolutely adore this concept. The Straw Hats find the Sunny is chained to one of the elephant's legs and decide it's time to climb to the top. Thankfully, Chondro is here with his Doodle Devil Fruit ability, which really has become quite charming. The entire trek up the elephant was a laugh-out-loud adventure where everyone gets some comedic time to shine. Chondro designs a wimp-ass dragon who the Straw Hats name Ruinosuke and who Robin secretly thinks is very cute. He struggles to climb to the top while Kinemon and Chondro give us a taste of what their deal is. They are here to meet their ninja friend, who every single one of the guys immediately has burning questions about, while Robin simply doesn't get the hype. This is just like the Frankie joke for young boys and some of the guys, but this doesn't miss any men. Proof that the coolness of ninjas transcends age. Then, Chondro and Kinemon are hit by a falling monkey and tumble all the way down. I can't even say that with a straight face. They're fine, but this was so over-the-top stupid, I loved it. Then, the story turns into a motivational triumph for Ruinosuke. Against all odds, despite all the hardships, he made it to the top. Robin is so proud of him that she begins to cry, and with his purpose served, he begins to fade away, while Luffy, Usopp, and Frankie freak out. When it cuts to the wide shot of the sunset, I lost it. It's moments like these that make all these characters so endearing, while also taking the piss out of the series a bit. Just having fun and not taking itself too seriously. Once we got to the top, this setting gave me serious Skypiea vibes. It's this ancient city surrounded by a massive forest that is up in the clouds. Certain shots of Zou are indistinguishable from Upper Yard, the Straw Hats meet a new species, and I mean, Christ, they even have electricity powers. If Luffy being shocked and saying that doesn't work on him isn't a clear reference to Skypiea, then I don't know what would be. It's clear to me that Oda wanted the audience to make this connection, and this comes right after the echo of Alabasta with Dressrosa, and the echo of Arlong Park with Fishman Island. Something's going on here. This is really weird, and the echoes only continue as we get further into the story. When the Straw Hats arrive at Zou, there's a bit of a split up. Luffy goes to do his own thing and ends up in the Forbidden Forest of the Whale Forest. He's attacked by giant animal people with electricity powers that actually appear to be quite strong. Meanwhile, the others are intercepted by a dog woman, Wanda, and rabbit girl, Carrot. But when Wanda learns that they are the Straw Hats, she goes to rescue Luffy from the Guardians of the Forest. Left on their own, the Straw Hats stumble upon a recently ruined city and are then washed away by a rain eruption, which is when the giant elephant sprays its own back with ocean water. I really enjoyed the setup for this arc. Despite the clear echoes of Skypiea, I still thought it was really unique. The crew has never arrived somewhere only to come upon a freshly destroyed civilization before. It set up so many critical mysteries because we are told the other members of the crew were involved in what went down here. So I thought it was really great stuff. Some other really great stuff comes when Kinemon and Chondro, now with Monkey Companion, are knocked down from their climb again when the rain eruption washes over them. Wanda and Carrot saved Luffy's ass and took him and the other newly arrived Straw Hats to a settlement in the forest where they received a warm welcome and are reunited with most of the crew. Despite rumors to the contrary, the Minks are a very friendly people, and I love how animalistic they are. I feel like most anthropomorphic animal people in media are about 99% human and 1% animal when it comes to behavior, but in the Minks case, I'd say it's more like 70-30. Most just want to play and cuddle. Nami, Chopper, and Brook are here, Momo is resting in his room, but Sanji is gone. We are teased for quite some time about what happened, but in the meantime, Brook warns the newcomers not to mention anything about Samurai before he is hounded by the dog Minks who constantly want to chew on his bones. Did I mention this is great? The story was obviously setting up some major Kinemon reveal at this point. Kinemon and Chondro have a mission here, Momo is essentially in hiding, and Kinemon and Chondro have not even made it on Zou yet. The story clearly wants your mind racing, and mine definitely was, but this is teased out for a bit longer. Firstly, we are taken to the leader of Zou, Duke Dogstorm, a 10-foot-tall dog man who is severely injured. He tells Luffy that he recognizes the hat he's wearing from Shanks, then passes out at 6 p.m. on the dot, because that's when his shift as ruler of Zou ends, and when Master Cat Vipers begins. The two leaders of Zou apparently hate each other, and they split rule over the country evenly between them, so they never have to see each other. While Dogstorm is passed out, we are told what went down to put Zou in such terrible shape. The vast majority of all the juicy action that goes down in this arc takes place across these flashbacks. We see that one random day, Zou was invaded by Captain Jack, the man we saw at the end of Dressrosa, who was going to attack the ships transporting Doflamingo. He is a subordinate for Kaido, who, just to make things a dash more confusing, has the devil fruit ability of transforming into a massive mammoth. He and his men are looking for Kinemon and Kandro's friend, Raizo, the ninja. The Minks, led by Dogstorm, step up to confront Jack, repeatedly telling him that Raizo isn't here. At one point, Dogstorm even lays down his arms and gives Jack permission to search the whole country. He tries to reason with Jack, who turns out to be completely unreasonable. The battle begins, and it seems like all the Minks have these weird electricity powers that we saw earlier, but which are never addressed throughout the arc. Is this some form of hockey? Or is it gonna be some static electricity thing because they're all furry? The battle goes into the night, and once 6 p.m. rolls around, Dogstorm and his musketeers bow out, and Master Cat Viper and his guardians swap in. I really love everything about Cat Viper, from his design to his attitude. I thought it was such a great touch how different Oda made both rulers' personalities. Speaking of designs, I think Jack's human form looks intimidating as all hell. Those cloth-sheathed tusk-looking swords he has are so sick. He's a broad, beefy boy who kinda looks like Kaido Jr., but I think it works. He's a horrifying powerhouse who fought continuously for 5 days against the rotating forces of Zou, while his reinforcements kept pouring into the island. This is probably the most insane, large-scale battle we've ever directly seen in this series. Marineford and Enies Lobby were dope, but they definitely didn't last nearly a week. Unfortunately for the Minks, Caesar Clown exists. On the 5th day, Jack used Caesar's gas that Kaido got from Doflamingo and changed everything for the worse. The Minks are paralyzed from the gas and are powerless against Jack's men. While this is a horrific display of chemical warfare, I thought it was a nice detail to show the end result of that underground relationship that the Straw Hats just disrupted. Things continue to get dark as Jack's men torture all the Minks for a full day, demanding to know where Raizo is despite protests that he isn't on the island. Jack even goes so far as to crucify the leaders of Zou and cut their limbs off. Jesus Christ. Meanwhile, we pick up right where we last left the Curly Hat crew, with Big Mom's ship chasing after them. They actually executed a very quick but exciting counterattack that went pretty flawlessly, then made their way to Zou, and this is the scene we saw unfold in Dressrosa, with the crew running around confused as all hell. I also want to point out that Chopper's hatred for Caesar is perfect. He despises the scientific monster that creates weapons of death. He's the perfect antithesis for what Chopper stands for. Good for Tony Tony. The Curly Hats come across the Minks surrounded in the gas and force Caesar to remove it so that they can rescue them. They really ended up saving this entire country. Chopper rushed to make an antidote, Sanji fed everyone, Brook played his tunes, and they all rescued people from rubble and cared for the citizens. That is the story of what happened to Zou, but we're not done with flashbacks yet. Oh, you know what's coming next! But first, I just wanted to point out that by this point in the story, the Minks had mentioned their 1,000-year history about 3 times. This got my mind racing since their country predates the Void Century, which made me think that something important had to come up. Maybe they know what happened during the Void Century, or maybe the poneglyphs even originated on Zou. I was hyped to see what was going to happen next, because the Void Century is one of my favorite aspects of One Piece. But before we got any more info on that, Oda reached out to me across space and time and whispered that this was the moment I've been waiting for. Turns out the Big Mom Pirates didn't give up on chasing after the Curly Hat crew after their big showdown. Funnily enough, they clearly heard them declare that they were heading for Zou, which normally wouldn't have been a problem since it's a phantom island, except that the little lion guy, Peacombs, is actually a mink from Zou. I like how retroactively Zou explains a lot of the animal people we've seen in the series, including Beepo, who I should have mentioned is also on Zou with the rest of Law's Heart pirates. While the Curly Hats, particularly Sanji, are enjoying their time amongst the minks, Peacombs arrives at his home, only to find that everything is destroyed. At first, he believes that the Straw Hats did this damage, but after being informed of what actually went down, he is extraordinarily grateful to them. I thought this was a genuinely sincere moment that the series unexpectedly pulls every once in a while. It's nice to see villains, who are usually just antagonists with different motivations and ideals rather than outright evil people, have internal clashes over those ideals versus their current mission. Peacombs is willing to let the Straw Hats go because of their heroic actions saving his home and loved ones, but Gang Tommy palms his ass. Inside Gang's castle body, the vaguely Italian pirate finally tells us what Big Mom wants from the Straw Hats. Sanji is formally invited to a tea party at Big Mom's, which will also host his wedding. Now, normally Sanji would be thrilled at the prospect of any woman even going near him, but this is a political marriage set up by his family. Sanji has a family. Sanji has a backstory. Sanji is a Vinsmoke. Gang says this makes him quite ill-bred, but a family that can get its son to marry into an emperor's family has to be pretty powerful, or else why would Big Mom go through all the trouble of coordinating this? We later learn some juicy info that the Vinsmokes are a family of assassins. I was not expecting that at all. For the longest time, my theory was that Sanji was the secret prince of a nation, the lost heir to a kingdom, because back in the early days of One Piece, he is always referring to himself as a prince. At first I didn't think anything of it, but when I went back and rewatched those early arcs up through Alabasta, it is such a constant that I thought something important had to come from it. I was entirely wrong. Turns out Sanji is far more like Killua Zoldyck than Prince Charming, and I thought this was an interesting subversion. Sanji is the third son of the Vinsmoke family, who aside from being assassins, also head a legendary underground organization known as Germa 66. Germa. Germany. Evil assassins. Is this gonna be some Nazi shit? If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know I've been somewhere between eager and obsessed to learn more about Sanji. Here, we finally get some rock-solid info, but it's mostly just set up for the next arc, which I'm so ready for. Sanji is finally gonna take center stage, hopefully, and I don't think we're just gonna learn more about him, but we're also gonna meet his family, as well as Big Mom's family. There are still plenty of mysteries, and while I consider this a victory and reward for my patience, there's still a lot left to learn, so I don't want to get too excited just yet. Sanji refuses to go. He clearly has no love for his family, and I'm guessing he ran away as a child. Although, Gang has some top secret info that really upsets him and he agrees to go, but rescues the rest of the Straw Hats first. He leaves a note telling the others that he has to go see a woman, and I think we're gonna meet Mama Sanji, who has to be responsible for his wildly distorted attitudes towards women. All this info gets relayed to the rest of the Straw Hats in the present, and Luffy decides that he's gonna go to Big Mom's and rescue Sanji. This gave me serious Enies Lobby vibes as well. There are so many echoes of past arcs going on that have to be intentional, but I can't place why yet. If Whole Cake Island is the Water 7 Saga remixed, does that mean we're building towards a remix of Marineford? If that's the case, is Luffy gonna redeem himself by saving Sabo's life? What the hell is going on with the story right now? Either way, the plan is for Luffy to be sneaky, so you know that's gonna blow up almost immediately, and I can't wait to see what happens with this plot thread. Back in the present, the Straw Hats are heading over to Master Cat Viper's territory to check in on him, as well as the severely injured Peacombs. It's here that we got some of that Vinsmoke exposition, Brook premiered his new hit single based on Cat Viper, and Chopper got his first ever boner after seeing a sexy reindeer babe. The Minks throw a feast and everyone parties the night away, except for the adult Straw Hats. I appreciated seeing the trio of Brook, Frankie, and Robin recognizing each other as the adults of the crew and taking on the additional responsibility of waiting for the samurai to climb up the elephant in order to prevent them from running into any of the Minks. Of course, all three pass out, and Kinemon and Kanjuro just stroll right past them come morning. I love what clueless, dumb goobers these two are constantly shown to be. This is the most tense time in the whole arc. The Monkey Man runs off ahead and warns the entirety of Zou about the coming of the samurai, and all sides spring into action. Meanwhile, Kanjuro, Kinemon, and now Momo are heading straight for the destroyed city with no idea what is going on. This sequence did an excellent job of building up to this confrontation, and I was genuinely concerned about what would happen when these two parties met. I didn't necessarily think the Minks would outright attack the samurai instantly, but I did think one wrong move could result in something devastating. The Straw Hats intercept the samurai at the very last second, while the Minks are distracted by the heated reunion of Dogstorm and Cat Viper. They tell them to keep their heads down and go back to the Sunny, but Kinemon pushes them aside and heads right for the Minks. He announces himself and his association with the Kazuki clan. Then, to top things off, he asks about Raizo. I thought he was toast. I thought he completely fucked it. But This turns out to be one of the kindest moments in the entire series. It turns out the Minks have an alliance with the samurai, and Raizo has been here the entire time they were fighting and being tortured, but no one said anything. They were all willing to die and lose their 1,000-year history in order to protect a friend. I think that every one of the Straw Hats' reactions is so heartfelt. They are so struck to be in the presence of such genuinely great people, unable to hide their unexpected deep joy that people like this do exist in the world. Luffy's smile at the end of that episode says it all. I think the ratcheting up of tension for this Mink and Samurai confrontation and then the subsequent subversion were masterfully handled. The bombshells don't stop dropping though. Momo isn't Kinemon's son. He is actually the son of Odin and heir to the Curry land of Wano. I'm not going to pretend to understand the politics of Wano, but essentially, Momo is an extremely powerful lord, and Kinemon, Kancho, and Raizo are his retainers, as well as Dogstorm and Cat Viper. I really did not see this coming. Back in Punk Hazard, there didn't even seem to be the slightest hint that Momo and Kinemon weren't related. Once again, I think this was handled perfectly, because up to this point, Momo and Kinemon have only been together very briefly, which keeps the opportunities for the audience to suspect something is up very minimal. Momo makes Dogstorm and Cat Viper agree to be friendly, and he properly introduces himself to the Straw Hats, but I love how this doesn't change their relationship with him at all. These pirates don't humble themselves before this lord, and Luffy still fights with him. Momo had a fun dynamic with the crew before, but this just makes it even better, and takes a minor character I was intrigued by, and catapults him into one of the most important positions in this series, which I will speak to in a moment. Zou is truly the arc of mysteries. The Minks lead everyone through the whale forest into a hidden cave on the whale's tail, where they are keeping Raizo and more secrets. If there was ever gonna be something to completely derail the action of going to rescue Sanji, it's this. He'd understand. All the guys are beyond excited to meet the ninja, and they make some clear Naruto references, which I thought was a nice wink and nod, and of course, it turns out Raizo is an utter freak. He's chained up to keep from handing himself over, and he's utterly miserable that the Minks suffered because of him. That's all well and good, but the guys hound him to show off his ninja abilities. Frankie tells Raizo that all boys like ninjas, and even Zoro and Law are in on this, demanding to see what he can do. Raizo resists at first, but then he begins doing his thing, and everyone is very pleased and very impressed. You know I love these stupid gags and can't resist gushing about them, but these are some pretty impressive powers on display. It doesn't seem to be Devil Fruit or hockey related, and that, on top of the Minks' electricity powers, and let's not forget Kinemon's flaming sword attacks, means there are a lot more power systems in this world than we are familiar with. Now it's time to get serious. There's a poneglyph here, not a poneglyph. Whoever decided to change the translation on that, please get a grip. This poneglyph is a mysterious deep red color, and as Robin begins to decipher it, we learn more from the Minks who have protected it for centuries. This poneglyph is one in a set of 4 that serves as a map to Raftel, the last island in the Grand Line where the One Piece is. The Minks know that Kaido and Big Mom have 2 of those 4 in their possession, so there would only be 1 additional road poneglyph to find after beating both of their massive asses. This was a really cool revelation. Raftel obviously can't be a normal island, or else a log pose would point to it, even if it was underwater or in the sky. So what is it? If the poneglyphs serve as a map, that means there must be something deeper going on that people centuries ago thought was important enough to leave a guide to, but maybe it's too dangerous to make public knowledge. I never really thought the island of Raftel itself would be important. To be honest, I never really thought much about it at all, because it's always seemed so far away. But really, it isn't anymore. All this talk of road poneglyphs just opened the path toward the end game of this series. And while Raftel is still far off, it feels like it's in sight now. Also, we finally get the answer to a question that's been around since Alabasta. Who made the poneglyphs? Well, turns out it was the Kozuki clan, Momo's clan. While he cannot read the poneglyphs, his father Odin could. Could being the operative word there, because he's dead. Odin was executed by Kaido, and that is why Kinemon, Kancho, Raizo, and Momo set off from Wano to begin with. We'll get to that in a sec. But we learn a very important bit of info about Odin. He traveled to Raftel as a member of Gold Roger's crew. he knew the secret of this world. That, combined with his knowledge about the poneglyphs, may have made Odin one of the most important people in modern times, and I can understand why Kaido would have felt threatened enough about his existence to want to kill him. Wano is far, far more important than I was expecting, and that leads me into some theories. Why would the Kozuki clan, a ruling family on a closed-off island that doesn't interact with the rest of the world, have left a map to Raftel across the Grand Line? What would they have to gain? And why would they feel the need to write it down in indecipherable stone blocks? How would they even know about Raftel in the first place? My half-baked theory is twofold. Firstly, I don't think Wano has always been closed off, although it is notable that the Kozuki clan made the poneglyphs and not the Shogun, so I suppose they could have been acting as rogue agents. Either way, there's nothing to say that the Wano of today is the same as it was 1,000 years ago, and that could explain why they would know about Raftel, given their general proximity to the end of the Grand Line. The second part of this is that the Kozuki clan must have had some idea what was going to happen in the Void Century. At this point, it's impossible to even guess what went down with any clear evidence, but if the Kozuki clan knew what was going to happen, they could have purposely sent out these secret messages to withstand the coming threat as a glimmer of hope. But what could have been so important? Why would civilizations like Jaya and Alabasta treasure these poneglyphs and instill the protection of them into their families for generations after the meaning of them had been lost? Especially considering Alabasta is part of the world government? That is odd. And why did Gold Roger tell the entire world that his treasure was on Raftel? Is he trying to guide people to the truth of this world? If so, why not just tell everyone what you know? I'm more confused now than ever. That wasn't so much a theory as it was a scrambled rant. But I think it's fantastic how the poneglyphs are utilized in this arc, and the implication that the road poneglyphs establish is far more important the longer that you think about it. Which ties into the next plot development. Odin's last words were a wish to open up the land of Wano. That's what his retainers live on to achieve. Their goal is to defeat the alliance of Kaido and the Shogun of Wano in order to open up the closed-off country. A Kozuki clan leader who visited the island of Raftel wants to open up the land of Wano? What does he hope to achieve with that? Spreading knowledge? That seems too simple, but it's my best guess for now. The retainers and Momo set forth into the larger world looking for allies, and Kinemon asks Luffy for his help. It's a natural alliance given that Luffy and Law have already made enemies of Kaido, and the Minks have suffered atrocities at their hands. So, of course, Luffy refuses. He's doing a lot of that lately. But in this case, he will only accept if Momo steps up like a man and a leader of men to ask himself. Which he does, and the Ninja Pirate Minks Samurai Alliance is formed. Jesus. This on top of the Straw Hat Fleet means that they may just have the numbers to pull off an invasion of an emperor's nation. Plans are set in motion as the allies get to talking. But one important piece of information comes up. The retainers all claim to have known a vast majority of the really important players in the last generation. They sailed alongside Odin with Whitebeard and Gold Roger, but none of them made the journey to Raftel. However, Momo also says that he met Roger when he was little. That's played off as a quirky childhood lie by Usopp and ignored, but I think that's significant. At this point, I'm paying attention to every little detail because I've been duped too many times before. I fully believe Momo met Roger, which allows for two conclusions. One that's less likely than the other. The least likely is that Roger didn't die over 20 years ago and lived past his execution, and that's when Momo met him. The more likely situation is that Momo is far older than we believe. He looks and acts like an 8-year-old, but I ain't ever seen the birth certificate. Kinemon and Kanjuro also look far younger than other members of the past generation that we've seen, like Rayleigh and Whitebeard. I suppose they could have been relatively young compared to the leaders of the past generation, but they appear to be a similar age to Shanks, which is striking considering their positions as retainers to a lord, rather than ragamuffin pirates. Something's up or I'm just insane. Either way, I've got my eye on that boy. While all this is going on, Captain Jack has returned from his failed attempt to recapture Doflamingo. Rather than ransacking Zou, this time he plans to just kill the elephant Zanisha. When Jack begins attacking it, the elephant speaks to Luffy and Momo, just like it apparently could to Roger and Odin in the past. We have also seen Luffy speak to the Sea Kings back at Fishman Island, so I'm assuming this is a Conqueror's Haki thing. But the interesting detail that throws a wrench in all of this is that while Luffy can hear Zanisha, he cannot communicate with it, only Momo can. Zunisha says that 1,000 years ago, it did something naughty and has been ordered to walk ever since. Momo is able to order it to attack, and it destroys Jack and his fleet with its trunk. Serves that dumb coward right. With Jack handled relatively easily, the planning session continues. The Alliance is going to split up into 4 different teams. After this experience with Zunisha, Momo wants to stay on Zou with Dogstorm and his forces to try and further communicate with the Ancient Beast. I think this has to be an important plot point down the line, but it's really strange to me that while Momo can talk to Zunisha, Luffy can't, even though he's expertly trained in hockey. So maybe this isn't a hockey thing at all. I have no idea what it could be then, but having a giant beast communication expert on the team could come in handy with this alliance and keep Momo relevant in massive battles going forward. Not only that, but Zunisha clearly has some relevance to the history of this world. Communicating with ancient beasts like it might be how we piece together what happened during the Void Century. The story keeps hammering home that this was a skill Roger had, which means it must have been important, so maybe talking to these beasts is how Roger pieced together where Raftel was. TLDR, Momo is Dr. Doolittle. The second team will be led by Master Cat Viper, who is going to search for another powerful ally to assist in their war on Kaido, Marco the Phoenix. Marco has essentially become Whitebeard's successor following his death, and although he doesn't hold Emperor status, he is still a powerful force in the New World. In fact, we are told that about a year ago, something called the Grudge War went down. The remnants of the Whitebeard pirates fought the Blackbeard pirates, but were defeated, and that's when Blackbeard earned his title as Emperor. This is an interesting development. We don't know much about Marco other than he was loyal to Ace and Whitebeard, but even alone, he would make a powerful ally with his Devil Fruit ability. However, I have the sneaking suspicion Marco and Cat Viper may run into problems with a supposed long-lost son and his greedy mama. The third team consists of Luffy, Nami, Chopper, Brook, P-Combs, this jaguar mink named Pedro with an overall likable vibe, whose gag of always having to be up high is fun, and Carrot, the young rabbit mink who's become obsessed with the Straw Hats and snuck aboard the Sunny to go on this adventure. The series is continuing with the new idea of splitting the Straw Hats up for arcs. Everyone who wasn't involved in the Dressrosa climax will now have time to shine during the next arc, and I think that's a good balancing act. It keeps the story fresh while allowing the immediate action to remain more focused and trim, rather than bloated for the sake of providing every character present with something to do. I'm just speculating, but I can only imagine writing these new intricate arcs with a host of supporting and antagonistic characters is hard enough without balancing 9 primary characters. So while this likely is a crutch to help Oda's writing, I think he turned it into a massive strength, and I'm very excited to see this very odd bunch set off together. The last team consists of everyone else. Kinemon is leading the remaining Straw Hats and Heart Pirates to Wano in order to meet their allies and begin preparations. With Zoro and Law as part of this group, I'm not super worried about their safety, but heading straight for enemy territory without Luffy or the eye of the audience might mean at the end of the next arc, we zip over to find out they've all been captured or something insane. I can't imagine things will just go according to plan, but that's talk for the future. Luffy leaps off Zou like a madman, and the adventure continues. Speaking of the future, the entire end of Zou is dedicated to even more setup, casually placing a ton more pieces on the game board. Reverie is coming. We see Vivi and King Cobra sailing out from Alabasta for the Summit of World Leaders. We are told that there are 50 nations in the world government, and all the leaders are coming to Mary Joy. Throughout One Piece, we've met a lot of rulers, so there will be familiar faces, but a ton of new ones too. We see glimpses of many of the world leaders preparing to set out for the summit, and I think it's going to be really interesting seeing these characters interact. Of all the characters we've met, I want Zeph to be there. I miss him, and he should declare Baratier an independent nation and crash this whole party. If we're getting Wapol, why can't we get Zeph? Of the characters who we know will be at the Reverie, King Cobra has the clearest mission. He looks sickly, which is pretty sad, but he wants answers about the poneglyphs from the world government. Considering his entire nation was nearly destroyed for one, I'd say that's fair. Dalton and Kureha are also heading for the Reverie, which means the Straw Hats somehow have to crash it for their reunion with Chopper to go down, or I'll cry. Shirahoshi is going to be attending with King Neptune, Rebecca is going with Viola and King Riku, Wapol is heading over after going through one hell of a capitalistic rise to power, And we even see a familiar haircut in Logtown. The second I saw the back of that fucker's head, I knew it was gonna be Sabo's gross brother. God, I hate that I like that he's back. Damn it. Oh, come on. They're not even gonna confirm it's him. Come on. He's even with the queen of the Goa Kingdom. Don't tease me. I know who this bitch is. It's what's his name? The Reverie is gonna be hugely important, but I think one other force will come into play. The Revolution. It turns out that Jesus Burgess led the Blackbeard Pirates to the Revolution's secret HQ, and they completely destroyed it. What the hell? Are the Blackbeard Pirates capable of losing? The Revolution's forces must have been scattered throughout the world, so they couldn't withstand a sneak attack, but damn, this is a battle I would have loved to see. This spells real bad news for the Revolution, which I'm sure will be a talking point at the Reverie. In fact, I could see two party crashers for this summit. I could just see Blackbeard strolling in through a cloud of destruction like a total ass, but I could also see a homeless Revolution now on the back foot, looking to recover some reputational damage, arriving to tell these world leaders to fuck themselves. I just can't imagine the Reverie goes smoothly. Finally, let's talk about the Beast Pirates. How the fuck is Jack alive? He's just waiting at the bottom of the ocean to be rescued. Can anyone die in this series? But really, if Kaido cannot be killed, and it seems like Jack can't be either, what's going on here? Were they cursed by a witch or something? If neither can literally die, maybe trapping them would be the only way to defeat them. Back on Wano, we see Kaido getting news about Jack's failure, and I wasn't really expecting him to be such a crybaby? Every character in this series has their gag or quirk, and I cannot tell if Kaido's is that he's an emotional wreck, or if he's a drunk with rapidly shifting attitudes. Either way, he's pissed and is set on taking down Luffy and Law. Oh, and he's beaten the shit out of and captured Eustace Kid. Great, guess he'll be waiting in Wano for us. Jesus Christ, there is so much going on. Zou may be the most unique arc in One Piece. The only thing that I think even comes close is post-Enies Lobby, but those are still starkly different. While there is action in Zou, it is entirely unlike any other arc in that its main purpose is to set up 10,000 plot threads for future arcs, and the story told is secondary to that. The arc itself is very oddly structured. I'd say the climax comes about halfway through with the reveal of the Minks Samurai alliance and Momo's identity. The majority of the action in this arc took place via flashback, and I think the only fight Luffy even engaged in took place immediately upon entering the Whale Forest with some unimportant guardians. This arc was really just the slow reveal of more and more info. Even the Jack return was a prolonged excuse to build up more mysteries and give Momo his own interesting plot thread for the future. Jack never even met a single Straw Hat. I find it really interesting and refreshing how atypical this arc was compared to other One Piece arcs. How I'm describing it right now may sound boring, but I thought it was the complete opposite. There's definitely tons of gripping stuff here. Overall, I thought this was a much needed breather after the insanity of Dressrosa, while serving as a brilliantly written reorientation point for the future of the series. And that's about that. This month is One Piece's 25th anniversary, and to celebrate, I'm ramping up my One Piece coverage. I'll be talking about Whole Cake Island in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, I'm starting a new series where I review every One Piece movie. Next week, I'm reviewing the first 5 One Piece movies, then in 2 weeks, I'm talking about Whole Cake Island Part 1. On the actual 25th anniversary date, I have a special surprise planned that I think you'll all enjoy, and then I'm finishing the month with the Whole Cake Island finale. Hopefully, none of you file a restraining order against me, and we'll be seeing each other quite often over the next month. Oh, also I started a Patreon. I probably should have said that sooner in this video, but if you want to support this channel, please consider checking that out. And now I'm done with self-promotion. Thank you so much for watching this whole video, you complete loons. I always appreciate you. Take care of yourselves, and until the next time, I'll shut up.